Hello again, and welcome to the second edition of Science, Metaphysics, and a Computer Simulation. Last time I presented a model for a computer simulation where I showed light coming from the programmer, modulated by the signs and projected onto a hologram based on the houses created at birth. Simultaneously, another beam coming from the planets and modulated by the moon is also projected 90 degrees to the primary, and this creates the image. There is a final volume control which varies with the quality of the soul and is a running tabulation of wins and loses in interaction with other players in the game. This session, I want to talk about the importance of numbers in the game. Numbers are far more than their use in mathematics. They are distinct steps from negative infinity to zero and ending at positive infinity. Zero and infinity are the domains of the programmers. The big problem is what to do with them, and especially with zero. In space, zero is where you are standing and is now in time, and for that moment you are out of time. Quantum mechanics teaches that there is a sea of probabilities until a choice is made, collapsing all the other possibilities and creating a reality. What this means is that the realm of now can't be ascertained with science. Metaphysics can. Mathematics has essentially four operators, and two of them can't deal with zero. Division by zero is a no-no, while multiplication always gives the same number. This leads to big problems in the micro, within the atom, and the macro, beyond the solar system. In these worlds, it is no longer continuous. It becomes pixelated. Science calls it the quantum world. The CFP can only get half the picture, resulting in what they call quantum madness. The high priest of quantum mysticism preaches that when you think you understand it, rest assured you are in an illusion. Since numbers are distinct steps and the simulation is about numbers, it stands to reason they will provide a means to define a step in the cycle. Numbers are very useful as a ratio. The denominator is the total numbers of steps. In astrology, this number is 12. The numerator is the steps in question. Studying the numerators for different cycles yields the essence of the number. The order of the signs is fixed. The magic is in their order and not in their names. We could very well use the numbers instead. Cancer 4, Capricorn 10, etc. The planets are wild cards, but they have relations with others via various angles based on numbers. So you can say that astrology is numerology with planets as wild cards. Let's look at the first two numbers in important cycles. There is a problem with 1 and a cycle of 1 in a simulation based on 2. 1 infers yang is the all and no room for the yin. This implies 1/0, a white hole in the fabric of space, a place for input directly from the programmer. The only solution for this dilemma is for yin to become -1, and I'll get into that when we study 2. 1 in the cycle of 2, while being yang, is the proton in subatomic particles. In 3, it's thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Fire is the first element and is the father in the 8 trigrams of the I Ching. It is also the alkali metals in chemistry, highly reactive elements. It is the sign of Aries and the magician in the Tarot. The heaven hexagram and finally hydrogen of Hindenburg fame. We get the picture of 1 that deals with extending out. Now 2 is yin and is everything that's left over, therefore a responder. It is the electron, antithesis, the element called air, which I will get into. 2 in the world of 8 is the mother and the alkaline earth, magnesium and calcium. 2 is the high priestess in the Tarot. 2 must be quite diverse, as being an electron, a highly reactive species in chemistry, while being the most inert chemical element. Helium without its electrons is an alpha particle within the atom and is the first to leave a decaying element producing helium. So 2 is active within the nucleus while inert as an element. You get the picture that there are 2 sides to 2. She serves 2 masters. The programmer started small, maybe a proton, and the simulation allowed it to expand to what we observe. What has filled the space? Well, imagine little droplets containing 2 entities, a sea of quantum foam, a sea of probabilities awaiting a choice. Science call it the aether. They never liked something they couldn't measure, so they gladly abandoned it when relativity took hold. Okay, a choice is made. What happens when the quantum foam collapses and we enter 0? The Tao, containing 2 entities, enters and a cycle starts. The Yang is the force of attraction and the opposite Yin is hidden in illusion. Time starts with attraction continuing to a maximum, the summer solstice. And I call this area the delta heat of reaction, using a scientific term. This value determines the intensity of the interplay and varies with each interaction. The romantic ones usually top the list. At this point, subconscious repulsion starts happening. At the fall equinox, it becomes conscious, and the fighting gets earnest, leading to a point where a decision has to be made, the winter solstice. Break up and go through reconstruction and eventually find a new one, or stay and work on making it win-win. There are what I call love surfers, the ones who like the highs but bail out when the repulsions become conscious. They bail out and seek a new relationship. What happens is that the delta H diminishes to nothing, resulting in numbness. Now, this cycle follows exactly the sine curve for the seasons and is the basis of scripts played out by the players, as we will get into. Let's see how this cycle is attained. The choice is made, resulting in a desire, something extending outside from the body. This is Yang, He, 1, masculine, the element called fire, a plus charge, and the planetary energy from Mars. The Yin must be opposite to the Yang. She is 2, feminine, the element called air, and the planetary energy from Venus. She is a morning star of attraction and an evening star of repulsion. It is the balance between attraction and repulsion which defines the depth of the relationship. Note, the Yang has just a plus charge. How can that be in the simulation based on duality? The 2 is the aura, surrounding the visible one, or the body. Recall, the illusion is created with light passing through a hologram. Note, in all relationships, one becomes the Yang, or on the left side of the line, and the Yin will be on the opposite side. That point will vary with different relationships. The players could be very yang in romance, but very yin in the workplace, and so on. A karmic relationship based on attraction usually starts off where that line is opposite to each other. Opposites attract. Repulsive relationships is where that point is the same, a clash. Wherever the point is on the line, there is no change. We need two more variables in order to create the cycle. The third and fourth variables form a line 90 degrees to the primary line. The 90-degree angle, ratio of 1/4, is the only angle where the two entities are completely independent of each other. The third entity is water, Cancer, ruled by the moon, the mother, the good cop, and says yes. She continues to support the one till it hits that point, the summer solstice, the delta H in the reaction. Of course, this height is a function of karma as described before. At that point, the father, Saturn, Capricorn, 10, intervenes and says no. Turn around, you are going the wrong way. This is the moment in a plant's life where it stops growth and starts the process of flowering. Just as in the seasons, the fire force of the one diminishes to the low point, the winter solstice, where the third force of yes is turned back on, causing the shift, creating the sine curve. Now, how did the programmer create consciousness in the simulation? This was achieved with the introduction of two more variables coming in from the planets, Mercury and Jupiter. From the square, a hexagon is formed, allowing the presence of the energy of the sun as an independent entity called the ego. The energy from Mercury provides a magic genie, the ability to store an event like the camera taking a picture. The brain contains a hard drive where the information is stored. There it is processed compared with the other information on that subject. There is a filtering process where the thought goes to the wastebasket, subconscious, if it doesn't conform to a belief. These beliefs are the core in the programming, karma. As always, karma deals with the count of win and lose. It's the belief systems that guides the player to its karma. The software is governed by karma. Planetary aspects, angles, based on the numbers, particularly 1 through 4, gives clues to possible software problems. The goal for Mercury is to communicate its finding to other players. In so doing, it feeds the solar power resulting within the hexagon. We'll get into this when I describe the scripts. The software, again, is very important to be able to quickly associate with what is observed with something on the hard drive. The spoken word is stored in the giant hard drive of the programmer and to be reviewed at the final moment. Did the words yield win-win? The magic genie is addictive. It's a strong voice to the sun at the control center. Whenever it isn't used, it will conjure up a thought from the past to the commander. If the commander chooses it, hormones trigger a chemical and the player will experience a feeling. During the first 7 years of life, through the experiences, the hormones are programmed to respond according to karma. The energy coming from Jupiter deals with the desire to expand the consciousness of the player. This provides the will to overcome the belief system to bring a contrary thought. Solar power is needed to overcome a belief. There is a problem here. It is the goal for solar power, fire, to be on stage, to be the sun. A mask is needed to hide the fire and become a mere mortal to relate with others, not as a god. The goal is to turn off the magic genie that desires to teach. Become a student so as to learn. It is impossible to learn anything when the lower mind is active. The relation between Mercury and Jupiter is essential for input and output of the players. If Mercury dominates, then the belief systems will prevent input. If Jupiter dominates, the input would be in fantasy. The solar power coming from the sun is the holistic effect from the 6 variables. The 7th is a free choice by the player, an entity that makes the choice which photon the Tao to designate, to choose. In this chapter I showed how 6 planets forming a hexagon produce a vortex, allowing the elevation of consciousness. The energy of the sun is captured in the center of the hexagon, producing the ego, a distinct entity, a player in the reproduction. In the next section, the numbers 3 and 4 will be further examined as major players. I hope you are enjoying these presentations. Please give comments, subscribe, and tell your friends. I will be back in session 3 in continuing science and metaphysics as expressed in a computer simulation. Till then, I say goodbye.